Welcome in to the Paul Kuharsky podcast, live from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, where the Titans embarrassed themselves to a new degree. I'm brought to you by Edley's Barbecue, the best place to eat in Nashville. You should be going there. 8 locations around Nashville. My favorites in Berry Farms. I broadcast live on Thursdays from 5 Points in East Nashville. You should check them out. Go there and eat. It is the best barbecue around. I love it. They are very good to me. We should be very good to them. Just a disaster here in Nashville where I get to travel to all these places because of Brymac. You should check them out. Also, if you need any kind of industrial, mechanical, HVAC kind of work, reach out to me. I'll reach out to them for you. See people flowing in the building. See, a lot of you have been here to stack up some questions, and we'll certainly get there. Just pathetic run defense day, the worst since, I think, 1961, certainly the worst since the team had rebranded and become the Titans. So the worst, those of you who become Titans fans since the team moved to Nashville. Just absolutely ridiculous performance. And then a lot of guys, Tavondre Sweat told another reporter, watch the tape. Like, you need to watch the tape to understand some intricacies of them sucking against the run. It's just complete bullshit. Jeff saying, well, it's not the defensive line. It takes all 11 to stop it. Well, if you look at one of the runs, he sheds his block and he turns, and he could go to Jonathan Taylor if he goes flat, and he doesn't go flat. He overestimates his speed to get to him, and he goes to a spot where Jonathan Taylor has already left. A lot of unwillingness for guys to take the blame. I don't know that Jeff Simmons has ever raised his hand and said, my bad, in his life. And maybe that's part of what makes him a good football player. But it's also annoying as fuck, quite frankly. Are Callahan and Carthon only safe, Matt asks, because Amy's still on the books for J-Rob and Vrabel? Well, she can come largely off the books for Vrabel if Vrabel gets hired. But no, I don't think that's the reason. She was willing to pay 2 guys. It'd be, dumb to be paying 3 guys, but they're nearly off the books. You got to stop signing people that you're going to fire or people that are bad to 5-year deals. But I don't know if Rand would have gotten 5 years or 4. So you'd be firing him after 2. I mean, I don't think she can base it all on that. What's the point of caring if ownership, coaches, and players don't care? Well, there's certainly some guys down there that cared. I wouldn't say that entirely. And I think there's some guys down there that are confused. You got some inside linebackers who are playing for the first time, who a lot of you, by the way, wanted to see play or begging to see play. And then you see them play and you see the results of them playing shittily. I don't think there was a huge degree of quitting. I think there's a huge degree of badness, but I think some quitting. Team full of excuse makers, says CW. CW, why do you double your initials? Why are you CW? Did you make a typo when you put your name into whatever system we're dealing with here? CA. We are in a no man's land. You fire Callie and Rand for the softness of the team. That's not why you would fire them. And the terrible results. Who really wants to coach this team, knowing we have no QB and could be one and done? Aim for 2026. Well, there are people who want to coach a team. It's one of 32 jobs. Now, it becomes less attractive because you just fired a young and promising coach after only 1 year. So you say, well, if I'm going to have some options to coach, this wouldn't be my top option because the roster's not good. And a coach who just came in with the roster not being very good didn't have much time to dig out. So you're not getting Ben Johnson. And you're not getting top flight guys. And a lot of the guys you would be getting are going to look a lot like Callahan looked coming in. And so, it's not a great situation to come into. And a guy knows, a lot of young coaches know that they're going to get, 2 years, 2.5, 3 years max, you're going to have a lot of faith in yourself. But you also could be a guy saying, like, this is probably my best chance to get an offer. I don't know if the situation I'm in right now is going to duplicate itself next year. And I'm going to have to take a flyer and take my stab, get my money, get my contract, get my chance. Amy's not going to fire these guys if she does because the team's soft. She's going to fire them for the results and because they sold her that this team was going to be better than Vrabel's last team, and it's worse. This team's definitely finishing worse than Vrabel's 6-win team last year. It could only win 5 games if it were to win 2. It's the first time Nick Suss has sussed this out from the Tennessean. It's the first time in franchise history, I believe, that it's gotten worse 3 seasons in a row. So there have been some times where it stayed the same for 2 years in a 4-year stretch or 5-year stretch or whatever, where it's gotten progressively worse. This is the first time that 3 consecutive years it's gotten worse. It's trended down. So that's a big deal. I don't know what Amy's going to do. I've been a supporter of staying the course and continuity and all of that, but it's getting harder, obviously. It's getting harder. Hey, how we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Am I okay here? I hope.
Huh?
Am I okay here? I hope.
Yeah.
Yep. Me and Tehran.
Making my rounds.
Sure. Me and Tehran are saying that we hear there are no major changes coming. Didn't Amy say last year that Vrabel was the coach for 2024? Middle of the season, Diana Rossini reported that. I think it's a good guess that came from Amy. And I've said, while I'm hearing there are no major changes, that she is temperamental and has been known to change her mind. And I've said, while I'm hearing that she's been known to overreact or to react strongly to results against the Texans. And if they go out and really shit the bed while they're wearing Oilers duds and helmets in the season finale, that could definitely change her thinking. So nothing is written in stone. I'm telling you what I know when I know it, but I've framed it as, there could be worse. There's bad, but this is worse. They're non-competitive and unprepared. Is it finally fair to call them soft? Well, finally, look, Mike Herndon called them soft in a column last week. It spurred a question. Callahan got defensive about it. Today, they certainly weren't strong-willed in any way, shape, or form. And that's been my argument more than physically soft, is that mentally soft. And then Kuharsky, in my column off of this game, said something much like he said that Herndon was referring to. And I think I tweeted him out saying it, but he said, it seems like we live and die with little mistakes. Sort of one thing kills us, takes forever to get out of it. I think we've just got to mature individually and as a group to kind of push through things that go wrong and keep going. But it seems like every little thing that happens, it turns into a mudslide. That's a lot like what Peter said back on October 23rd, I believe, when he said, like, we reach the inflection point and things go bad and we don't know how to dig out of it. And so that's 2 months apart. He's saying virtually the same thing about the team, and that doesn't bode well for the team's keywords, right? That does not bode well for relentless and resilient. That does not sound relentless and resilient. Shaker says, seems like Sweat and Simmons are not too productive when shedding blocks and tackling runners at the line of scrimmage. Well, they weren't today. I think they certainly are and have been at times. Simmons is a very good run defender, generally speaking, and Sweat has been. Excuse me. So I wouldn't say that generally. They were not today. Everybody sucked today. And this was, some gap runs that kind of dismissed. Well, it was gap runs. It's 300-plus yards of gap runs. To all-time franchise worst since 1961 of gap runs. Does classifying them as gap runs somehow make them not count? Like, come to terms with the fact that you just got run all over. Don't label them in some basket that somehow they don't count. They count, boys. They fucking count. I favor Casey's asking, what's the best case scenario for the starting quarterback next year? Do I favor a free agency or the draft? I don't think the draft quarterbacks are that good. I don't think they're in range of the best two. I think they take a longer time to get ready. I think Carr or Cousins would be the best realistic possibilities. And the expectation is those guys are going to come free. They're both substantially better than what the Titans have had this year. And they cost you money, but not draft capital. So I'm not in despair, LeVar. I'm going to go back to my hotel room, have something to eat, watch some highlights, and sleep just fine. I'm not in despair. I'm just telling you guys what's up. I'm in despair that the Yankees don't have a third baseman, and I'm not even in despair over that. Should have hired Mike McDonald. I mean, you can be a huge fan of his, but nobody was campaigning for Mike McDonald, and they were in it for an offensive coach. Amy is not, Jeremy says, your conventional kind of owner. She does make emotional decisions over logical ones. I think you're giving far too much credit to most of NFL ownership. I mean, we think Jerry Jones isn't making emotional decisions. You think the other owners in position like the Titans, and they're like 10 teams in positions like the Titans. We think they're not making emotional decisions. We think Shad Khan wasn't making an emotional decision when he hired and fired Urban Meyer. We think Mara wasn't, or let's go to the Jets. We think he's not making an emotional decision when he's letting his kid give out game ball and stepping on his coach's toes and firing his coach and his GM over the course of the season and letting Aaron Rodgers dictate things. What happened today on the reside of the offensive line? I think you're saying right side. Dylan Radins got hurt, and that forced Brunskill to move to right guard and Levin to come in at center, and then NPF got benched. Who's the quarterback next Sunday? Richard wants to know. I'm surprised, by the way, that Callahan left the door open on that. But I think once you make the change, you've got to stick with it. So I would think it would be Rudolph. Simmons will be traded on draft night, Andrew says. Andrew, I don't go with the I shouldn't even said that out loud. I don't go with the predictions as pronouncements of fact. You know where you can go on Nashville radio if you want to play that game. CA, if they fire Callie and show one and done, nobody good will come here. They will combine that action with perceiving that we did Vrabel wrong, who is well respected. Also, that means Amy paying 3 head coaches and GMs. Well, she won't be paying Vrabel, presuming he gets a job and his salary is the same as it was with the Titans, which it will be. Why did Kinsey fair catch the ball, set up a return, bad coaching? Well, there's certain returns that if the punt is the right kind of punt, you have to fair catch it. You can't automatically have a return. Aaron says Simmons is the worst excuse for a face of the franchise I can remember. He is not the right guy to be the guy to speak on behalf of the franchise. I think that's ridiculous. And Mike Vrabel's burner says he loves Jeff, but the Colts interior line manhandled him in both meetings this year. Carr or Cousins, says UV. Damn, I'd rather bring Tannehill back. Well, that would be a mistake because Carr's got much more of zip to him, I think, than Tannehill. Cousins, you would hope, would recover more from what's going on this year. How much of the play calling is being driven by analytics versus Callahan himself? It would seem who's ever in charge of this team will want to change something rather than to run it back. Well, I mean, Callahan uses some analytics, but the analytics don't drive the basis of the play calling. Analytics are kind of situational, maybe some personnel wise, but it's mostly Callahan. Yeah, somebody wants to know what the defensive coordinator had to say about the run stopping troubles. We'll hear from the defensive coordinator on Thursday. Kyle points out that Titans struggle with small little fundamental things of football. Vrabel was a detail guy. Callie doesn't have a clue. Certainly the details were better under Vrabel than they've been under Callahan to this point. I don't operate Billy too much on gut feeling. Billy's asking me what's my gut feeling on if Amy cleans house. I've talked to people who had a good feeling that nothing was going to change. Within the last 2 weeks. Start Trevor Siemian on Sunday, Richard says. Why? I mean, you really think that that's a tank move. They're not going to make a tank move. They're not starting Trevor Siemian. Mike Vrabel's burner wishes that Ridley got fewer targets. He only had 5. That's on Callahan. 3-win team playing from behind constantly. Need to throw more to the star receiver who's making big bucks. Tyrod Taylor and Drew Lock. You prefer those guys to Carr and Cousins? I don't. I mean, those are better backups. Got to get better leadership on both sides of the ball, Sammy said. And I agree with that. It's not easy, though, to find a guy like that who's out there, right? You have to draft him and grow him. If there was a Kevin Mawai out there that they could go and get to bring in, I mean, that one class was remarkable. We had David Thornton and Chris Hope and Kevin Mawai. If you could get a class like that and bring them in and transform the locker room leadership-wise, that would be outstanding. But I just don't think that is possible. And she was paying Wisenhunt, Malarkey, and Vrabel all at the same time at one point. Now, she should be smart enough to get out of a place where she's doing that. She's done it before. Maybe she won't do it again, but there is precedent for her doing it. So just keep that in mind. PK Chosen said, this roster isn't good. Callie deserves another year to get his guy. The biggest mistake ownership made was choosing to build a team around Levis and sacrificing the season. Well, ownership didn't choose to build a team around Levis. Ownership's general manager had a hand in drafting Levis. Once Levis is on the roster, you decide, well, we spent a second-round pick on Levis. We're going to give Levis some time, which is not an unreasonable decision to give a second-round pick some time. Now, if they chose that badly, that's on the choosers. Could you get J.J. McCarthy for cheap? Why would you get him for cheap? They spent the 11th pick in the draft on him. He got hurt. Why would they give him away for cheap? At worst, they've got depth with he and Darnold. At best, they trade one of them away for something decent. They would have to trade Darnold, tag him and try to trade him, or tag him and keep him. And then you get McCarthy as a backup growing up behind him. And you push off your quarterback's decision. Why would they move him for cheap? I don't think we let Henry walk, shift off Hopkins and Jones to turn around and go get a vet quarterback. Rand wants to rebuild. These bad veteran quarterbacks is the opposite of that. Rand wants to rebuild. Rand just signed like 12 veterans at a cost of $180 million guaranteed. If Rand wants to rebuild, he had a funny way of showing it because Rand put together a roster that was supposed to compete this year. Checked all the boxes, I think Rand said. So, Johnny, I don't think you have a good handle on what Rand was doing there exactly or what his intentions were. Those are not the actions of somebody looking to rebuild. Rand refused to trade down 2 years in a row in the first round. And he traded away his third-round pick 2 years in a row. That's not what a rebuilding guy does. That's a go-for-it guy. Sam points out the reason that Ridley didn't get targets is because the tight end and running back were wide open underneath with them playing a shell all game. I sure like Spears as a receiver a lot more than a running back. Titans fan base, Velo says, is delusional. This roster is bottom 4 or 5 in the NFL and has been for 5 years. I don't know about 5 years because 4 years ago they had the number 1 seed in the AFC. So if they had the number 1 seed in the AFC, they did it with a bottom 5 roster. I think that I understand if Vrabel won Coach of the Year. I think in that season, maybe it was 2019. But even a Coach of the Year, I don't think is taking a bottom 5 roster to the number 1 seed in this conference. Now, that said, I agree with Sam. I mean, this is the result of the bad J-Rob drafts. When you go Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley and trade A.J. Brown for Treylon Burks, you're asking for trouble and then terrible contract management to try to make up for that and maximize a quickly shrinking window. You've got problems, and they've got the echoes of that. But at a certain point in time, given money to spend in free agency, and if you manage your drafts well, you got to get some impact players and start to turn things around. And I expected to see some of that this year, and we certainly haven't. Jim, I've already touched on this. They swapped 3 offensive linemen on the right side. What was up with that? Radens got hurt, knocked out with, I think it was a shoulder injury. That means that Brunskill's got to move to right guard. Levin comes in and replaces him at center, and then Petit Frere got benched, and Ojukwu took over. CA says he's been a fan since 1992. Thanks me for what I do. Top 3 of lowness as a fan watching this franchise. We have no positive future outlook, no quarterback, no solid coach, no star power. Well, no quarterback, no solid coach, no star power is for sure. I think it's the low moment since they become the Titans, for sure. I mean, it's every bit as bad as Wisenhunt. I think you do have the fact that I think Callahan is not the asshole that Wisenhunt was. And I think Callahan is more in touch with what good looks like than Wisenhunt was. But I mean, that's about it. Ridley and Snead aren't young. That's true. They're not old. Darnold's going to be super expensive, and they're probably going to tag him. And if they tag him, you've got to trade for him plus pay a huge salary. And I just don't think you can give up draft capital. You give up draft capital for a quarterback now, then you're forestalling all these other holes you have, which is way more than we thought it would be. And even if it was just what you thought it would be, right tackle, edge, receiver, safety, it's a lot. I don't know why, Robert, why are you sorry for calling this team a dumpster fire? I don't think there's anybody in here that would say the team's not a dumpster fire. Like, you're being defensive. A couple people in here are being defensive, as if there are people in this room who are saying good things about this team or defending who they are or what they're doing or have faith in upper management. Nobody does. There's nobody in here that's saying upper management's good. Amy knows what she's doing. The only argument for anything regarding management and coaching is continuity over starting again with somebody who might be just as bad, with somebody choosing the hires that chose these people. And this accountability thing, I mean, Jarvis says somebody needs to be held accountable. How do you spend that much money to improve a roster and it's worse than the year before? That's bad business, right? Yeah, it's bad business. So the accountability there is to fire Rand Carthon. I mean, I think she could make a lot worse moves than firing Rand Carthon, so long as she hires somebody better than Rand Carthon, which, by the way, is no guarantee. Christopher says, this fan base is dumber than the Vols fans. Let Rand cook. Love Miss Amy. Fire Vrabel. I mean, I agree there's an element of this fan base that's super dumb. But Vols fans, come on. Vols fans are took 2 minutes from that game being over to turn to, oh, it's a great season, all of that. Fucking be mad for a couple days. And the fact that you drive 5 hours to Columbus and cover the stadium doesn't make you a good football team. I mean, they're so misguided. Like, you are so far off from Ohio State. It's ridiculous. And last I checked, Nico's been at the school more than 1 year, so I don't know how he qualifies as a freshman. What if Brinker wants to move on from Callahan, but Rand wants to give him another year? Well, neither of them is making the decision. Amy's making the decision. So they would have to make their cases to Amy, and Amy then would make the decision. Brinker's not making the decision without Amy, and Rand's not making the decision without Amy. But I don't think either of them wants to fire him. PK. Say Amy walked away from being the controlling owner. Do I think Kenneth would be next in line? Of course he's next in line, and he has an active role in the organization. But she's not walking away from being controlling owner anytime soon. If they move on from Callahan, they got to give Dave Canales a hard look. Dave Canales is the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, is he not? You don't just go shopping amongst head coaches for your next head coach. They have contracts and jobs. Another, what if Rand and Brinker disagree about Levis moving forward? Well, we find out. We won't find out, but Amy's sorting through opinions of her employees. Sam, coaches, especially new young ones, can also grow and get better. Thank you. Improvement isn't just for players. Thank you. Something to be said for having a year's experience under your belt and learning from it. Thank you. Here's the thing, and I don't want to invoke his name, but somebody's saying you have to get experienced football people in here to fix this mess. But like the Jets have hired the 33rd team to bring in to help them advise. Well, the 33rd team is Tannenbaum. Tannenbaum is connected to Belichick. You can be almost certain that the 33rd team is going to recommend somebody who's connected to Belichick. Now, it seems like their favorite for a coach is Vrabel, which is a good selection for the Jets if Vrabel likes the ownership thing enough, or is promised enough about the Johnson family and all of that. But if you go to Bill Polian and say, advise me on who I should hire as coach, well, it's going to be from the Bill Polian tree. It's going to be Polian's friends or Polian's friends' friends. That's how it works every time. And so it sounds great. Hey, go get a football person to advise you on it. But what it turns into is their network. And so you narrow yourself down to their network. You see it time and time again, and it doesn't work out as great as you think. Now, is it better than Amy Adams Strunk just hiring it with Burke Nihill? Probably. But it's also very predictably just like a friends club, a Polian friends club, or whoever. And that's how guys like Marone, I can't remember who his connection was, but Marone gets pushed because he's friends with somebody. And Marone wasn't the best guy for the jobs that Marone got. Where was he? Jacksonville and Buffalo? Do you want Marone? No. Johnny doesn't want Carr or Cousins because they both played bad on better rosters. They'll come here and be worse, so good luck. So who's your alternative? You can say no to this guy and this guy and this guy while you wait for an imaginary quarterback who doesn't exist who's going to come here and be excellent. Who is that guy? Let's name names. For everybody you say no to, I want somebody that you say yes to. Let's go. And duck falling, I mean, people can say fire Callahan and fire Rand, but they cannot say Amy should sell the team because it's not realistic. It is realistic that Callahan could get fired and that Rand could get fired. But Amy's not selling, so we're not giving any oxygen to that because it's a ridiculous thing to say. And this is not the bottom. Duck falling is right on that. Tennessee Truth. I know this team's administration is hard to predict. If I was GM for a month, what 3 things would I do to move this mess forward? What 3 things would I do to move this mess forward if I were GM? Well, I would decide what direction I was going at quarterback for sure. I would fire Colt Anderson. I think that's happening, undoubtedly. So I don't know if I'd waste one of my 3 moves on that. I would find some kind of veteran leader that would come in, and I would make it clear to the team that was the number 1 leader on the team, and I would tell Jeff that was the number 1 leader on the team. And I would plaster his face everywhere, and I would minimize Jeff in that role. So those are fire Colt, find a quarterback, a veteran that Callahan liked a lot. And demote Jeff in terms of leadership role. Oh, Velo got insulted. Velo, I said something negative about his beloved Vols, and now he's all upset. It's okay, Jabari said. This is a good line. Rand and Callie are hunting together, and everybody's getting along. This team, let's not forget, this team may only have 3 wins, but there's no strife, as far as we know, between Brinker, Callahan, or Rand. They're getting along. Who knows? They probably tell jokes, and smile, and laugh, and it's good that they get together. Boosh. PK, can y'all not demand at any level for a presser from GM or owner? What good does it do for me to say Amy should talk? She's not going to talk. She's not going to listen to me. There will be press conferences after the season's over that include at least Rand and maybe Brinker. And let me tell you another secret. It'll be worthless. Rand will get up there and he'll say everything's fine, and he'll put his foot in his mouth a couple times, and we'll get a week's worth of conversation out of it, and it'll prove worthless. Adam Gase got worse, CW said. We're not saying that every coach given time gets better. We're saying some coaches given time get better. I put out a list of coaches that had 4 wins or fewer in their first season, and there were like 7 guys who became Super Bowl and Hall of Fame coaches. So it happens. Just fire everybody all the time isn't always the answer. And some of these teams that fire their coaches regularly, the Jets, just keep hiring dud coach after dud coach. So is that where you want to be? Because there's a good chance that could happen. I mean, there's no record of great hiring going on here. I didn't like Vrabel being fired, but it's time to get past the fact that Vrabel was fired because guess what? Vrabel was fired. He was a program builder. His last 2 seasons were pretty shitty. Now, he had a bad roster, and so we said, well, here's a guy with a bad roster. He lost some ugly games in the last 2 years. So, there was a good Twitter thread going around, for the people who said this would never happen under Vrabel, reminding us about some bad losses under Mike Vrabel. Now, he got off to a much better start than Brian Callahan. But, I just don't think we could say that. This is nonsense. Hood. Rand built the 49ers to Super Bowl contenders. Just be patient. Name me, Hood, some other assistant general managers who built their teams to Super Bowl contenders. Who's the assistant general manager of Kansas City Chiefs who has built the Chiefs to Super Bowl contenders? Who are the assistant general managers of Bill Belichick's Super Bowl winning dynasty? Who's the assistant general manager that keeps the Steelers going to the playoffs on a regular basis? If you're being serious that an assistant general manager or whatever he was in San Francisco built them to Super Bowl contenders, I hope you're kidding. It's ridiculous. Jim says the 33rd team is better than using a Madden video game. I will agree with you there. Getting a lot of check-ins here. Security's very worried about me.
Hello?
Hey.
Oh, okay. How long do you think you're going to be, sir?
I'll be another 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, take your time, sir.
Thanks. Stewart says he's not out on Rand. He thinks this last draft was good, and he brought in good free agents. Good free agents, yeah. There are obviously deep issues, but I don't know who to lay the blame on. Callahan didn't help his case today. Neither did Rand. Rand, who, by the way, loves Jeff Simmons. He's not responsible for Jeff Simmons, but he thinks Jeff Simmons is an all-time leader. And Jeff Simmons got in the locker room today after they gave up a world record rushing yards. And you know what he said? Not me. Look over there. It's all 11. Not this one of 11, but the other 10 of the 11 over there. Those are the guys who gave up the rushing yard. Not Cedric Gray and James Williams. I mean, they're on the roster because they're supposed to be good contributors. How'd they do? How was Quandre Diggs and Lloyd Cushenberry today after the team solved its injury problems? How was L'Jarius Sneed? I mean, the free agent class is mediocre at best. So you're going to CW is going to hire Liam Cohn because he's had some success with Levis. So he's going to give Levis control of the organization. It's crazy. Dylan Gabriel's a 3rd-round pick and small. So, I mean, you're not patient with what's gone on here. Dylan Gabriel's going to come in, and they're going to lose games while Dylan Gabriel finishes out, learns on the move. So you're not patient with what's going on here, but you're going to be patient for 2 years of Dylan Gabriel learning on the job? Yeah, Cohn's doing well, and he knows Levis well. But why would you shape this thing around Levis when Levis has pretty much proven he's not good? I'll take Carr or Cousins, probably in that order. Do I think Amy could ever bring in someone at the executive level similar to Miami with Parcells and Jags with Coughlin? Well, Coughlin was the GM of the Jags. Parcells was kind of presidential by the time he got to Miami. Seems there's a lack of leadership with extensive football experience. Well, Brinker is that guy right now. He's not Parcells or Coughlin, obviously. This is a waste of a question. Hood. During the press conference tomorrow, ask Callahan why he hasn't fired Colt Anderson yet. I mean, it's pointless at this stage. There's 2 games left. There's no use in that question. Jeff Simmons isn't going to draw a first-round pick right now, I don't think. CW says, I would say give Callahan time, but I see nothing promising. Every week is a new low level for this team. I mean, what you're counting on is him going and having a great offseason of studying everything and figuring out his weaknesses and getting an improved roster and coming back next year with a great deal of growth. They hired Vrabel, means they could get lucky again and find another. Well, they hired Robinson, which was a good hire, and Robinson really hired Vrabel. So they had 2 good hires there. But their 2 good hires both turned out to be egomaniacs, which wasn't healthy for them in the long run. I mean, just some of the perceptions here are wild. I didn't care listening to Vrabel throwing the team under the bus during losses. Never felt like he took accountability. First thing he said after every loss was, I've got to coach better. I've got to coach better. I mean, I don't know how you didn't hear that. He was pretty much asked if it was a soft effort after the game. Jared saying, I threw BC a softball at the presser. I don't even remember what it was. I couldn't ask him if this was a soft effort from the team. He got that question. Do we pat these guys on the back for scoring 30 points? Alejandro, I think you asked that on the Facebook too. Why the fuck do we care if they scored 30 points if they're giving up 300 yards? No, I don't give them credit. You go ahead and give them credit. I mean, Chattanooga Collector says, do the players actually like the coach? I mean, I think we'd see people saying things that they're not saying if they don't like the coach. So Sam says, maybe the 49ers are a great example. Fired Harbaugh, then churned coaches, which included Tom Sula, who was atrocious. Didn't settle until they gave Shanahan time, even through 2 bad losing seasons to start. Be patient for at least another year. Now, and I think we know Shanahan. I mean, I think everybody knew Shanahan was going to be good, right? So. Why do I get this question so much? Has there been change with the scouting staff? I mean, Rand changed 1 scout in 2 years. For some reason, they love all these yes men scouts that Robinson had. I don't think Shador, Sanders, Chosen's asking if they have a top 3 pick. What are my thoughts on them taking Sanders? First off, I don't think he'll be there at 3. I think he's going to go 1, either to the team that has 1 or to somebody that trades up to 1. And I don't see him as a sure thing NFL quarterback. What are we being patient for? What are we waiting on? Waiting on guys to grow and get better and for a team to gradually build. First year hasn't been good, but that's what you wait on. Like Jabari says, we can't draft another quarterback. Need edge and wide receiver game changers, plus a right tackle. I mean, I think that paired with the fact that there will be veteran options that don't cost draft capital is a decent rationale. Chattanooga Collector says he believes it's the coaches. We have a decent roster. We shouldn't be this bad. I don't know. I don't see a decent roster. I mean, I thought it was going to be a better roster than last year, but I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it in a lot of spots. I mean, I think Harold Landry who's been terrible this year, really. Keys played a little bit better. They have no pass rush, no pass rush. So we heard from Denard Wilson. They were going to blitz. They were going to find ways to the passer. They don't get the passer at all. They don't create anything defensively pressure-wise. Pass protection's gotten a little better in recent weeks. Run blocking from the line is pretty good, generally speaking. Playmakers, not enough. Jim McCann says, Levis, 33rd pick in the second round. 31 teams said no thanks. Well, I mean, by that logic, that every guy who's drafted in the second round, teams have said no to. So no good players have ever come out of the second round? It's nonsense. How many teams passed on Jalen Hurts? Jeff sat out some key plays because he got stuck on the bench in a hurry-up sequence where the Colts were not subbing. But that's a good excuse to have him on for the first play after an offensive series when he's had plenty of rest. Yeah, I don't get this. Jeremy says they need to shut Pollard down. Week to week, we see him limping off the field. They need to do it so he doesn't needlessly make the injury a lot worse than it is. There are only 2 games left. Why do we presume he needlessly makes the injury worse than it is? If he's got like an ankle sprain, guys play through ankle sprains all the time. And he's got a whole offseason to get healthy. Suck it up. Be tough. Now you're talking about toughness. Pollard's fine if he can get out there. Jim McCann thinks that Brock Purdy, the whole league, because the whole league thought he was shit and left him till the last pick, he must be a terrible player. I don't understand. Shaker says, seems to me the Titans are going to have to bite the bullet and trying to develop Levis one more year. Quarterback draft class, not great. Free agent quarterbacks, nothing to get excited about either. But next year, they're automatically going to be definite solutions. So they just pass on a year. I mean, Levis is on the roster next year, but I don't think they have to start him. They're allowed to attempt to replace him. They're allowed. Oh, this is not the worst coaching staff the Titans have had. Take a look at Mike Munchak's coaching staff. I mean, he had a couple good young coaches. He also had a dude he went to high school with who came from the high school coaching ranks. He had Chris Palmer, who had flamed out in the league and was terrible. Bud Adams screwed him by hiring Munchak so late. He and Fisher made the decision so late that Munchak was the last coach hired, and he really didn't have much to choose from out there. And also Munchak had spent his whole career in the Titans organization, Oilers-Titans organization. He didn't know many people, but he was not able to put together a very good staff. This staff is not terrible by any means. The top is not great. Callahan's inexperienced. Holtz is inexperienced. Denard is inexperienced. Colt Anderson is inexperienced. I don't think Tracy Rocker knows how to substitute. Carr is going to want to get out, and reports are that they're looking to move on. And Cousins has had a bad year in his first year off of Achilles. There aren't going to be great choices. There are going to be better choices than Will Levis. Is Will Levis fully healed? No. Most guys don't fully heal from injuries during the course of the season. Well, I agree with this entirely. There's too much Vrabel had too much ego, and not enough Amy should have learned to deal with a type A personality. Absolutely. And she's the boss. She didn't like the way he was acting. She should have gone in and said, this is what I need from you. This is what I expect from you. And tried to set the course of the ship. She's the owner. PK's business is not doing better with the Titans stinking. No, Cody. Couple more and we'll get out of here. And Merry Christmas to everybody. Eat at Edley's Barbecue. Best place to go. Look, you're going to do a lot of cooking on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. So it's a good time Monday to go. Or after you get sick of leftovers later this week, go to Edley's. I'm going to be there Thursday in East Nashville. If you're not working, come by for lunch. I'll be there. I'll announce what time. It depends on the Titans practice schedule. But great time to head over there and have something to eat. Great food. Edley's Barbecue, 8 locations around Middle Tennessee, probably one right near you. There's one pretty close to me in Berry Farms, Factory in Franklin. I go to the one in East Nashville every Thursday to broadcast. You need to be a member of Kuharsky.com. You see the great conversation that we have here after a game. A lot of great content at the site. $7.50 a month. It's nothing. Come, join, enjoy my news and analysis, stuff from Blake Bedingfield, who scouted for the Titans for 19 years, stuff from Mike Herndon, very popular analysis, often with a big film breakdown. Trust me, if you're a big Titans fan, and you claim to be a big Titans fan, you need to get to be a part of what we've got going at paulkuharsky.com to really prove that you're as big a fan as you say. Let's take 3 more and get out of here. 30 points in a win is great. 30 points in a loss, no thank you from Andrew Clark. CW. I wonder if Cohn would come here and be a play caller for Callahan. That would leave Callahan less on his plate to deal with. I'm not saying start Levis. Bring in a good quarterback and compete in training camp. I don't know about that. Richard says, so this is what collaboration gets you, 3-12? Yeah, I think the collaboration thing has been overrated. Good people first and foremost. Good people first and foremost. Lyman says, good question for Skoronski. Good. Curious your answer there. Grew up here and not sure I've ever felt so pessimistic about a team. I find it so frustrating that most Titans fans wanted to hold on to Vrabel, and Amy felt the need to justify. I don't really get the end of that. That was a bad question to pick. Thank you for the compliment. I might be crazy, but if they go with Cousins, Ashton Jaunty in the first round wouldn't make me mad or edge. Why would you draft a running back in the first round? Why would you draft a running back at all? They've got Pollard and they've got Spears. The last thing they need is a running back. I understand he's dynamic. He's going to be a good player, but they can't go best player available. They need a young, dynamic receiver. They need an edge rusher. They need a right tackle. Those are the first 3 things they've got to address. Now, they might address them in free agency and everything, but another running back is going to be redundant on this roster. Redundant. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. Thanks for your loyalty here. I appreciate it. Come join paulkuharsky.com. Eat at Edley's. Bet at Zen. Check out Brymac. I appreciate you all very much. Keep in touch. I will see you soon, if not before Christmas, right after. Love you all very much. Thanks for joining me. Time to get some dinner.